Okay, I'm just going to briefly talk about domain and range here for a moment. Domain are basically what are the limitations or what are the x values, okay, or the inputs allowed in this. And there are certain reasons why you couldn't have a negative answer. Maybe it's a negative time that doesn't make sense. Um, but there's going to be a variety of reasons of why we can't have certain inputs, and it just doesn't allow for anything. And so you'll see that we, of course, call this the independent variable right here, but the domain here um, is going to be what the values are, the allowed values for x. The range here is what the allowed values for f of x are going to be, or the dependent variable. So I'm just going to very quickly look through a couple of examples here. Looking at the first one here, these are what are called discrete. Okay, so in this left column are what are called discrete. I don't actually have a given function here. In other words, I don't have all the values. And maybe this is only the only values, but this is all that they give me. And if this is all that they give me is a table of values here, all I can do is list them. And so that's what my domain is. I just list them. And I use these little curly brackets right here to list them. So I just say, you know what, starting at lowest would be -6. Then I'm going to get -1, 1, and 3. And that's just listing them in order. My range here starts at -8, -4, 7, and 11. And so that's my range. These are called discrete. Actually, I'm going to move down here to show you one more example of discrete. Here I have 3 points. That's all that's on this graph. They're just showing you 3 points. It's not connected at all. But if I just isolate these and say, we start at -2 for the x, we move to -1, and all the way to 6. And that's how I wrote the domain here as discrete, unique values here. For the range, I'm looking at the f of x values, or I guess what we could call the y in this case. And that would be -3 down here. It moves all the way up to 1 and then to 5. And that's how I'm writing the range. Of course, it could be something different, and usually we're going to use inequalities to represent this. And so the one inequality I'm going to use here is, if you look this one here, of course this isn't a function again because of the vertical line, but just looking at the allowed x values here in this graph, and what I have here is that x is always greater than or equal to -2, and it goes to infinity. Now, we don't actually have to write that it goes to infinity. We can just say, you know what, x is everything greater than -2. It's okay to just leave it like this. A range here, well, basically goes all the way down in the negative direction and all the way up in the positive. And so this is going to go from -infinity to infinity. And just take note that I don't put equals, because equals infinity doesn't really make sense. We usually just want to say less than or greater when we're talking about infinity. This one here, this little open circle means that it's not touching that point, so it's never touching -3. So you'll notice I didn't write equals, I just wrote it's greater than -3 for x, and it goes all the way to 3, but the dark dot means that it's equal to it. And so you'll see it's not equal and then equal. And same thing with range. It actually is the same result here. The range goes from -3 all the way up to 3, but it's going to be that it's greater than or equal to -3. In fact, I see a mistake here. This should read greater than or equal to -3, and this should read less than 3, because of course there's a circle there. So I'll change that, but just take note of the difference there. And of course the other couple here, very similar here. We got, looks like if that keeps going forever, it's going to go from -infinity to +infinity. And in this case here, x is always less than or equal to 4. If this keeps going on forever. This graph here has a hole right here, and so we're going to say here that the domain is always greater than or equal to 8, and it goes all the way up to, but not including 6. And of course the range ranges from a little bit greater than -8, of course never touches it, no equal sign, all the way to less than or equal to 6. And same thing here, we can look at the ranges, and of course this one in the x in the domain goes forever. And in this one, I'm just going to switch over to this guy here, because you can see here that in the range here that x is always greater than or equal to -4. It just starts right there. These have 2 blue lines here, and we refer to those as asymptotes. If you look at this one here, basically x never touches -2. It's every other point, but just never -2. So it's okay to just say what it doesn't touch, and we're just saying it's never equal to negative or to +2. Same thing with the range. It never touches this line right here. It comes close, but never touches. And so we just say it's never equal to 1. And that's okay. That's enough information there to kind of illustrate that point there.